Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Federal Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault has launched a new oil and gas cap policy, which says emissions must be cut by a third by 2030. Alberta Premier Daniel Smith is not happy with Minister Guilbeault's announcement and explains why. And Israeli officials say 50% of the Hamas leadership has been taken out. A military expert says the IDF has more challenges, however, involving the terrorist group.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault thinks the federal government's new oil and gas cap policy is historical. The energy sector is going to have to cut emissions by more than a third by the year 2030 or be forced to purchase offset credits. Guilbeault said the plan was developed after consultation with industry and other stakeholders to make sure it is achievable and won't risk losing a constitutional challenge from provinces over jurisdiction. Ottawa says oil and gas production accounts for around 15% of Canada's total emissions.
Oil and gas is the largest emitting sector in Canada, and unlike almost every other sector of our economy, pollution from the oil and gas sector is still going up. We owe it to Canadians and to the rest of the world to address these emissions, as we owe it to our workers and businesses to ensure that Canada's well-earned reputation for energy innovation remains our strong suit for the 21st century.
Now, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers says Ottawa's plan is far too ambitious and could lead to higher energy prices. Alberta Premier Daniel Smith says Minister Guilbeault has to stop attacking our energy sector. She says this approach is very hurtful and quite disrespectful to our province.
Alberta owns our resources, and under the Constitution, we have the exclusive jurisdiction to develop them and to manage them. And we've done so responsibly by setting a price on carbon as far back as 2007, developing a carbon offset and trading program, investing billions in commercial scale carbon capture, utilization and storage, creating an innovation fund that has so far supported more than 260 emissions-reducing projects with $2.6 billion worth of grants, and by establishing a clear framework for reaching carbon neutrality across our entire economy by 2050. With his pronouncement today, singling out the oil and gas sector alone for punitive federal treatment, Justin Trudeau and his eco-extremist Minister of the Environment and Climate Change, Stephen Guilbeault, are risking hundreds of billions of dollars in investment in Alberta's and Canada's economy and core social programs.
Alberta's Environment Minister Rebecca Schultz was asked if there's any way to fix the broken relationship with Ottawa and Minister Stephen Guilbeault, a way to try and find a middle ground when it comes to working together to have an emissions cap that works for both parties. Can't we all just get along?
We met here in Dubai, and at that meeting, he refused to tell me when they would be announcing this emissions cap, what would be included. His words were that we needed to sign an NDA. Other provinces from across the country were remarking how odd that was, how unprecedented that was. And as Premier has said, if this was a constructive federalism, we wouldn't have to sign an NDA to have a conversation with the federal government about policies that impact areas of provincial jurisdiction. That is wildly disrespectful, given that my meeting with him was only 2 days ago. So they knew exactly what they were up to. They just didn't want to have the conversation. I think that is, I quite frankly think that that is unbecoming of a minister, and I think it's absolutely disrespectful.
The Alberta Pension Plan Protection Act passed its third reading on Thursday. The bill mandates the government hold a referendum on leaving the Canada Pension Plan, but does not demand the result be legally binding. The Alberta NDP introduced an amendment on Wednesday to change that, but it was voted down by the UCP's House majority. Just after midnight, the legislation passed 45-32. The province announced that it is providing more funding to help protect communities that are at heightened risk of wildfires. The $5 million will go towards the costs associated with building fire guards. Fire guards are areas around communities where vegetation has been removed. They break the path of a wildfire and cut it off from fuel sources that could drive it towards a community. Officials say the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta's Community Fire Guard program is being offered in addition to existing initiatives and Fire Smart programs that provide communities with education and resources related to wildfire prevention, mitigation, and emergency planning. The Alberta government is taking more of a focused approach when it comes to supporting more Alberta-based TV and film productions. Arts, Culture and Status of Women Minister Tanya Ferris says so far this year, Alberta's given $2.8 million to the Alberta Made Screen Industries program. She says the funding has supported 155 locally made film and TV projects in mentorship and post-production grants. Minister Ferris says it's important to continue to support Alberta talent.
Alberta Made Screen Industries program supports local talent so they can pursue the work they love here at home and create and celebrate Alberta stories. Part of this program is the Alberta Made Production Grant, which supports Alberta producers in creating content for smaller budget productions. It covers 25% of eligible production costs to a maximum of $125,000. And because a booming industry means we need to further develop the workforce, we added a training and mentorship incentive to the Alberta Made Production Grant. That grant provides up to $35,000 for activities related to on-set training, job shadowing, and mentorship.
Well, it was quite a bit cooler today with some light flurries across much of southwestern Alberta. Jeanette Rocher is now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, how long will the white stuff be sticking around?
Yeah, well, we can expect to see 2 to 4 centimeters this evening, Hal, so a little bit more snow than what we saw earlier today. Also into Friday, seeing light periods of snow and temperatures dipping down into the minuses. So -4 for an overnight low. It's going to feel more like -9 with that wind chill factor. Also winds from the northwest gusting from 20 to 40 k. Tomorrow, not as windy, only 15 k wind gusts, but still going to feel that nip because we're seeing a high of only -2. Wind chill value will be -10. But after that, it should lighten up quite a bit. We're even going to see some pluses as we get into next week and over the weekend. And I'll be back later in the show to let you know what that looks like. Hal?
Thanks so much, Jeanette. The new National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations says Canada and Canadians need to work with First Nations people in a good way. At the same time, Cindy Woodhouse says if Indigenous people and chiefs are not listened to, there will be problems.
It's so important that we unite more than ever. We're facing many crises in this country, and our people are facing the highest poverty levels in this country, yet we're the fastest growing demographic. And so we have a lot of work to do, and I just, I look to the Assembly of First Nations as that needs to be a strong voice to amplify the voices of First Nations once again, and to make sure that we're not left out of tables, and that the provinces, the territories, the federal and provincial governments, that you make space for our people at the table. The top-down approach from governments in this country needs to stop, and if we're going to truly work towards reconciliation, we need to be united. We need to make sure that we're working together for progress and for closing gaps.
The Manitoba Regional Chief was leading after 6 ballots, and her closest challenger conceded before a 7th could be held at the AFN's Special Assembly in Ottawa. The father of a woman who was shot and killed by a former partner is calling on senators to pass new gun control legislation on the 34th anniversary of the Polytechnique massacre. Brian Sweeney traveled from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario to Montreal, Quebec for a ceremony marking the grim day in 1989 when a man shot and killed 14 women at the school.
I'm here because of what happened to my daughter in an intimate violence scenario. Domestic violence to me has been out of control for a long time. I just believe that it's time the government stepped up and started doing more control over the gun issues. When people don't qualify for a gun, they should never be able to get one. It's not about the law-abiding people that own guns. It's about the people that shouldn't have them.
The Alberta government is putting more money towards security infrastructure and officer presence at both Jewish and Islamic faith-based schools to help improve safety. Public Safety Minister Mike Ellis says eligible schools can apply for up to $20,000 in funding. The grant will be available for up to a year. Ellis says with the increase in hate-motivated crimes and harassment at both synagogues and mosques, more needs to be done to provide safe spaces.
Certainly lately, hate-targeted violence has tarnished peaceful protest activities, giving rise to a climate of confrontation and an increased sense of fear felt among our province's Jewish and Muslim communities. Albertans and their government will not stand for this. Hate and bias motivated acts of harassment and vandalism have no place on our streets, schools, or places of worship. Doesn't matter where you are from or where you pray, in Alberta, you have a right to feel safe walking down the street or going to school.
Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek is receiving a lot of backlash over withdrawing from the lighting of the menorah at City Hall. Tonight marks the beginning of the Jewish festival of Hanukkah, which celebrates the triumph of Judah over the Maccabees. Calgary Tory Caucus Chair Pat Kelly issued a statement on behalf of all Calgary Conservative members of Parliament regarding Mayor Jyoti Gondek's decision not to participate. In a release, he says, "We are deeply troubled by Mayor Gondek's decision to withdraw from tonight's menorah lighting event at Calgary City Hall. Her decision to withdraw could dangerously normalize anti-Semitism at a time when across campuses and communities, Jewish Canadians are already feeling threatened." The group Doctors Without Borders says another 115 bodies have arrived at the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in central Gaza in the past 24 hours, where the morgue is now full. Israel continues to blame the high civilian death toll on Hamas, accusing it of using civilians as human shields when the terrorist group operates in residential areas. The IDF has not given detailed accounts of its individual strikes, some of which have allegedly leveled entire city blocks. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the offensive will not end until Hamas is completely wiped out. An Israeli airstrike has reportedly hit a residential block in Khan Yunis, trapping dozens of people underneath the rubble.
اللي صار الناس قاعدة في دورها آمنين قاعدين بيخبزوا واللي قاعد بعبى مية واللي قاعد فيش أمان فيش أي منطقة أمان كل الصواريخ بتنزل فوق رؤوس الناس حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل على كل واحد شايف وساكت على كل واحد شايف وساكت حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل أكثر من 70 نفر تحت رجلينا هنا أكثر من 70 نفر مش قادرين نطلعهم.
The Israel Defense Forces, or IDF, says it is closing in on the Hamas leadership in Khan Yunis. Officials say so far, around 50% of the terrorist group's leadership has been taken out. A former naval intelligence officer with the U.S. military told TBN Centerpoint program that the challenge for Israel right now is to having to go through so many tunnels in Palestine.
An immense span of tunnels that goes under Khan Yunis, just like in Gaza. In the beginning of the war, we had about 300 miles of tunnels throughout Palestine, and that's cut in about half right now. But what we see is the leadership, which, as you mentioned, about half of it's been eliminated. But our two top, as the two aces of the deck are still remain at large there in Khan Yunis. As we look at Yahya Sinnar and Mohammed Deif, the two primary objectives that we're looking for in Khan Yunis, that's the brainchild. That is the head leadership there, and taking out them is going to be a major blow to the organization, how it frames itself, how it moves forward, and especially its financing and its logistics. There's always that risk, but I think those two snakes, once they're dead, is going to be a huge blow to Hamas.
The movie The Sound of Freedom has been a huge hit at the box office. The movie addresses the evil that is human trafficking in the world today, in particular in Central and South America. Human trafficking is not just an issue in places like Colombia and Honduras, but is also a big problem here in Canada. That's according to Jen Tribble, who's with the nonprofit group Not For Sale here in Lethbridge. Tribble says education is key in addressing this issue.
Like, one of the biggest things that we can do is educate the public about it and let people know that this isn't just something that happens overseas, like it happens in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our backyards. So one of the things that you can do is spread awareness of what to look for and the signs of human trafficking. And it's not to cause fear, it's just to bring awareness to it, and the fact that there might be people that are going through this and they don't recognize it as human trafficking. Like I was saying, because of the deception and the manipulation around it, sometimes it's difficult to recognize.
Make sure you catch the full interview with Jen Tribble of Not For Sale and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up later in our broadcast. Police in Lethbridge have charged 5 men in connection with an incident in which a man and a woman were robbed at gunpoint in a hotel room. Police say the targeted incident, which occurred on October 30th, took place at a hotel on 7th Avenue South. They say 3 male suspects, armed wearing masks, forced their way into a room, demanding money, and tied up the couple. An undisclosed amount of cash was e-transferred. Then the male victim was forced into a cab and taken to a bank to withdraw more money. The victims were then assaulted and more property was stolen before the subjects fled the area. 4 men are currently in custody facing various charges, and police are still looking for this guy, 39-year-old Marvin Blake Weaselhead of the Blood Reserve. If you've seen him, you're asked to call Crime Stoppers right away at 1-800-222-8477. Cami Tanner is the founder of Herbal Apothecary here in Lethbridge. She has some ideas now on how you can naturally boost your immune system during this upcoming cold and flu season.
Taking astragalus root is a really great one for boosting the antibodies in your body. And also it helps to reduce inflammation and helping with the respiratory health. So making sure your lungs and your upper respiratory are nice and healthy and strong to kind of prevent those viruses coming and entering the body. Elderberry is a classic, again, high in antioxidants, helping with upper respiratory, echinacea, things that we should be taking now to be preventative for when those things kind of hit.
I love that elderberry syrup. Cami Tanner from Herbal Apothecary will have more details on how you can naturally boost your immune system with wonderful foods coming up in the second half of our program. Well, the Festival of Nativities has begun at the LDS Church on 28th Street South in Lethbridge. The event features more than 700 nativity scenes, and one of the organizers and a member of the design team says there really is something for everyone.
So as you walk through, you'll see Bethlehem, you'll see the miracles he performed, the Last Supper, his tomb, and even some of his resurrection. So you will see different nativities from Africa, from all around the world, Lego ones built by children, and beautiful, glorious ones that are thousands of dollars. And they're all here just to celebrate him and this beautiful Christmas season.
The Festival of Nativities continues daily from 1 to 9 p.m. at the LDS Church located at 2410 28th Street South. It was on this day that Japanese forces attacked the home base of the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, prompting the United States to enter the Second World War. This is Today in History for December the 7th.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
And all of a sudden, see these planes dropping bombs in the distance, and then, of course, when they started coming to us, and you see the bombs start dropping around you, this is no drill. This is it.
And the torpedo planes were making their runs on the battleship Row, and that was all on fire and exploding. All we could do is fight off the airplanes as it came by.
The attack was launched at the very moment Japanese peace envoys in Washington sought to continue peace conversations with this country.
The Arizona was on fire, still smoldering in flames. The West Virginia was sunk. The California, and here we were upside down. Such carnage that they had done to us. It was hard to believe that any country on earth could have done that to our battle fleet.
No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory.
It was a very sad day indeed. Wow. Well, here in southwestern Alberta, it was much more of a cooler day, and a bit of the white stuff that we saw today may continue tonight. Full weather details are coming up. We saw some clouds and light flurries again today in Lethbridge and a much cooler temperature. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, it may be a good idea to have that snow brush handy.
Yeah, probably not a bad idea at all, Hal, since we could be waking up to a bit of snow on our cars, on the roads. We are expecting that 2 to 4 centimeters overnight. Periods of light snow as well, continuing on Friday. High of -2, going to feel like -10 with that wind chill value. And then, as promised, things are going to lighten up quite a bit. We're going to get back into the plus temperatures. We're going to see the sunshine again, and that snow is going to stop for the weekend there. Mix of sun and cloud expected Saturday. High of 1 degree, up to 6 degrees on Sunday. Mainly sunny then for the rest of the week. Looking at Monday and Tuesday forecast, high of 4 and 5 degrees respectively. And then look at that, as we get to midweek, we could see the temperature rise back all the way to the teens again. Looking at a high of 14 degrees as we end out that 7-day forecast. So average high for this time of year, 1 degree, average low -11. High temperature on this day happened back in 1939. It was 14 degrees. And back in 1972, look at that. A very cold -35, and that was the record low for this day. Sun rose this morning at 8:14, looking at a sunset this evening at 4:31. This afternoon, I should say. So we're getting very close to that 8-hour mark now. As we look to the west coast tomorrow, we're looking at a bit of rain there in Victoria, high of 8 degrees. Mainly sunny in Vancouver, light winds. However, the closer to the water you are, you're going to feel that wind, up to 30K wind there. 6 degrees for a high, -3 for a high in Edmonton, looking at mix of sun and cloud, and then cloudy skies later on in the afternoon. -2 for a high expected in Calgary, looking at periods of snow overnight and then clearing up by the morning. As we get to the rest of the prairies, here's Saskatoon sitting at a high of -4, looking at a mix of sun and cloud. Now Regina seeing 2 to 4 centimeters of snow, -2 for a high. Also expecting blowing snow in open areas as they're looking at 40 to 60K winds there. A risk of freezing drizzle, freezing rain rather, is expected in Winnipeg tomorrow. Looking at rain changing to snow flurries by the afternoon, high of 2 degrees. As we get to central Canada, Toronto looking at a mix of sun and cloud, high of 7 degrees. Ottawa also could see a risk of freezing rain and looking at periods of drizzle changing to snow there. -2 for a high, 7 degrees for a high in Montreal. Montreal not looking too bad at all. Mix of sun and cloud there. As we get into Atlantic Canada, Fredericton, high of -3, mainly clear skies. Halifax could see some flurries there as well. 0 for a high, 30% chance of flurries in Charlottetown, 1 for a high, and 60% chance of flurries happening in St. John's tomorrow, looking at a high of 0 there. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault says the government's oil and gas cap plan is both feasible and constitutional. This comes as a framework published says Canada's oil and gas industry will have to cut emissions by at least a third by the year 2030. Guilbeault says the plan is critical to lower emissions from the country's most carbon-intensive sector, which accounts for more than a quarter of Canada's emissions. However, companies can buy offset credits or can contribute to a decarbonization fund that would lower the requirement from 30 to 35% below 2019 levels by 2030 to just 20 to 23% below them. Both Alberta Premier Daniel Smith and Saskatchewan Scott Moe say they're opposed to Ottawa's emissions cap. Moe says Ottawa's proposal to have oil and gas emissions fall by more than 40% by 2030 will hurt his province's economy. He says the province will protect its constitutional right to build its economy. The Premier says the province has already undertaken a number of measures to reduce emissions, including a policy to decrease methane output. Top executives from Walmart and Loblaws appeared before a Commons committee to explain what they're doing to stabilize grocery prices and why they have not signed on to an industry code of conduct. Galen Weston from Loblaws and Walmart CEO Gonzalo Guevara are concerned the code in its current form could raise food prices. They also said the higher prices stem from many variables and that not all parts of the supply chain are back to normal yet. CN says it has signed and closed an agreement to acquire Iowa Northern Railway. It serves the upper U.S. Midwest agricultural and industrial markets. While terms of the deal were not disclosed, Montreal-based CN says the transaction represents, quote, a meaningful opportunity to support the growth of local business by creating single-line service to North American destinations. The Iowa Railway operates 442 kilometers of track in Iowa, connecting CN's U.S. rail network. CN says the U.S. Surface Transportation Board is expected to weigh in on the deal in the new year. Now, here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 4 points on the day to finish at 20,278. The Dow was up 62 points to 36,117. The S&P 500 was up 36 on the day to 45.85, and the Nasdaq was up 193 points to 14,339. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 4 cents to 69.34 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 2 cents to 2.59 US. Gold was up $2.92 on the day to $2,028.47 US an ounce, and silver was down 10 cents to $23.80 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $9.14 per bushel, barley's at $6.75, canola's at $15.12, and corn is at $8 per bushel. Live cattle were down $1.10 to $162.35. Feeder cattle January contract was up 13 cents to $210.28, and lean hogs were unchanged at $67.55. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 73.56 US. Recapping one of our top stories, Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault thinks the federal government's new oil and gas cap policy is historical. The energy sector is going to have to cut emissions by more than a third by the year 2030 or be forced to purchase offset credits. Ottawa says oil and gas production accounts for around 15% of Canada's total emissions. Alberta Premier Daniel Smith says Minister Guilbeault must learn to stay in his own lane and respect Alberta's policies. There are a wide range of natural treatments which can really help heal and make for a healthy body. That's according to Cami Tanner, the founder of Herbal Apothecary. We'll have details for us in just a few moments. Listen, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of today's local stories, visit our website, bridgecitynews.ca.
Here's today's Bridge City News community calendar. Come out for some Christmas cheer to the 30th Annual Mayor's Christmas Concert Saturday, December 9th at the Southminster United Church beginning at 7 p.m. Get into the holiday spirit with performances by the Lethbridge Community Silver and Gold Bands and their guests, the Windy City Accordion Ensemble. Tickets are $20 and can be purchased online at lcbs.yapcity.com or at the door. Students under 18 enter for free. Food, toys, and monetary donations will be gratefully accepted on behalf of the Christmas Hope campaign. Experience the amazing and beautiful display of lights at Glow Lethbridge at the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center until December 31st. This enchanting light display features Santa's reindeer and sleigh ride, the majestic Taj Mahal, London Bridge, and so much more. Plus, enjoy live musical performances, delicious holiday treats, and photo opportunities with Santa Claus. For tickets and details, visit glowgardens.com/Lethbridge. And that's today's Bridge City News community calendar.
Many Canadians are having challenges when it comes to stress and anxiety impacting their overall well-being, especially when it comes to trying to get a good night's rest. Sometimes the traditional Western approach is not always the best answer. Cami Tanner is the visionary founder of Herbal Apothecary here in Lethbridge, and she has some ideas of how to improve our health. Her business houses a wide variety of dried herbs, mushrooms, powders, and teas, and they're all geared toward embracing a more holistic and natural approach to our health. Cami, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You bet. How does the quality of one's diet really impact our overall health? And maybe what are some specific examples of how a nutritious diet contributes to a healthier body?
That's a loaded question because food plays so much into our health and how our body reacts to the food that we eat. It seems like we live in a society right now where everything's grab and go or takeout, and everything is full of stimulants, sugar and salt and different additives to make food taste good and addictive, but really it doesn't do very much for our health. And so when we get back to a natural diet or a more healthy diet from fruits, vegetables, eating out of our garden, it plays a tremendous role on our health and how we feel after we eat those types of foods.
Let's talk about how eating a lot of the natural foods really plays a role in disease prevention, Cami.
Yeah, so eating natural foods those are rich with vitamins and minerals, and kind of think of our body as like organic material. We were made out of organic material, so is plants. And so when we're eating like, it attracts like. So it benefits each other. When we're eating those inorganic foods and things that are processed, highly processed, it doesn't match very well with our body. And so it causes a lot of confliction and a lot of upset, a lot of imbalance. And that's why we have so many health issues today.
So what key food groups should we really focus in on for our diets to really improve our gut health? And the gut health really impacts our mental health as well, correct?
Yeah, you actually have more neurons in your gut than you do in your brain. So the foods that you eat is very important for both our physical health and our mental health. So fermented foods are the best. They play such a huge role in our diet and our stomach and our digestion. So eating kimchi, our misos, even our water kefirs and our kombuchas are very important for our gut. But just think as natural as possible. If it comes from the earth, you dug it up and you eat it, that's as natural as you can get. As soon as you start processing it, that's when you're going to start running into problems.
Are there any specific ingredients or practices from traditional medicine that are particularly effective for common skin concerns, like maybe acne or eczema?
Yeah, I mean, some of those are genetic, but there are a lot of things that we can use to help with acne. Tea tree is a really good essential oil. It's very antibacterial, and a lot of our acne is caused by bacteria in the skin. So you can use tea tree. Aloe vera is another really good antibacterial. Frankincense. Diluting those down in a carrier oil like jojoba oil. Jojoba acts very much like our skin's own natural oils. And so it's very healing, reduces inflammation, and diluting those essential oils into a carrier oil of about a 5% dilution is just about perfect. And so putting that on your skin and applying it can help reduce that inflammation, that bacteria growth in the skin, and even using activated charcoal, which can pull out some of the toxins that cause flare-ups.
Are there any ancient beauty rituals or techniques people can use that maybe integrate into their modern skincare routine to help them look younger?
Oh, there's lots of them. I mean, just look back to the Egyptian culture where they were revered for their beauty. Some of their practices were, using Dead Sea minerals and coffee to scrub and exfoliate their skin, taking soothing milk baths, using honey for a facial mask, or putting almond oil all over their skin to protect it from the sun and protect it and heal it from damage. Those are all great things that we can do. Tremella mushroom is another one that is, it's actually phrased the beauty mushroom because it's so good for the skin by improving elasticity and reducing inflammation in the skin. So there's lots of things.
It's just funny, I'm thinking about the cost of milk right now. You said a milk bath. You know how expensive that bath would be? The price of milk.
I'll do like a coconut milk or oat milk bath. That might bring the cost down a little bit.
How do these natural remedies compare to or maybe complement conventional skincare products and treatments?
So if you're looking at, always look at the labels on the ingredients of the products that you're buying. If it's as natural as possible, that's going to be good. But today there's a lot of cosmetics and facial products that are filled with preservatives and alcohol in order to make them shelf stable and make them last, which are going to cause a lot of damage to your skin. And remember, your skin is your first line of defense to your immune system. And so you want to keep that cellular wall and that cellular mortar very strong and very intact to prevent bacteria, fungus, things like that from entering in the body. So you want to really steer away from chemical preservatives and alcohol, but look for those ingredients that are very natural. Hyaluronic acid is a great one to put on your skin that are found in a lot of cosmetics and beauty products today.
I had a doctor many years ago in Calgary when I was a child growing up in southern Alberta here, and he used to tell me, Hal, before you apply any sunscreen to your skin, make sure you go outside for 15 minutes so your skin can absorb a lot of the vitamin D, before you actually put that on, so it doesn't reflect it, so your body can actually have the benefit of the vitamin D. You used to tell me that every day, like for 15 minutes, you're fine, but then after that, you should put on the sunscreen. I always found that quite interesting. So Cami, what effect does stress really have on overall health and our well-being? What are your thoughts?
I truly believe that stress is the #1 killer because it affects so much in the body. It can cause heart disease, stroke. It causes depression, anxiety, weight loss. It affects your memory. It is so damaging to the body, and yet stress is everywhere in our lives. It runs rampant. So stress is one of those things where we really need to start being aware of and conscious of what causes us stress and how to reduce it.
I guess diet, exercise, proper sleep. But when it comes to diet, are there any foods in particular that maybe will help alleviate some of the stress, give us a sense of calmness and peace?
Yeah, they're called adaptogens. And what adaptogens do is they go in and adapt into the body where they're needed, and they remove both physical stressors and emotional stressors, because stress isn't just a mental state or how we feel. It's your flight or fight response that is being activated in the body, and it causes wear and tear on different organs and different systems in the body. And so there are foods that we can eat. Ashwagandha is a great one. Reishi mushroom as well are beautiful for reducing stress in the body.
Thyroid disorders are also increasingly common right now. Can you discuss traditional approaches or remedies for managing these sorts of problems?
Yeah, and again, a lot of times thyroid problems can be brought on by the adrenal systems being overloaded, so the thyroid needs to kick in. And so you can either have hyper or hypo, and ashwagandha is a really good one for hypo, for increasing those hormone levels and balancing them back out. Moringa leaf and lemon balm are really good for hyper, for bringing that body back into homeostasis, balancing the hormones, kind of calming the hormone levels down.
Some people are quite concerned about getting type 2 diabetes, and they say you should stay away from the sugars. But what about sugars in some of our fruits, like bananas are high in sugar, maybe oranges or apples? What are your thoughts in that regard? Should we steer clear of certain fruits, or are they okay?
My grandma had this great saying, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. And it's always stuck with me. And every time I think of something, I'm like, always in moderation. Too much can cause imbalance. So they're okay, but just let's not overindulge ourselves and overdo things. Just my advice.
Cami, as men get older, we really get concerned about our prostate health. Sometimes the prostate enlarges, making things a little more difficult. Are there any natural remedies you suggest that could potentially maybe shrink a man's prostate? Maybe some foods that may help?
Yeah, and a couple that come to mind would be the cordyceps mushroom as well as pine pollen. They're very good for men's health, and also removing the stresses from your body, bringing it into homeostasis so that your hormone levels are balanced, which can cause an issue of problems with prostate and other parts of men's function. So those are two that come to mind that I would recommend.
A lot of my sports teams not making the playoffs causes me a lot of stress, so maybe I should kind of distance myself from some of those sports teams. Cami, sleep disorders like insomnia affect so many of us. What non-traditional methods have proven effective in your opinion?
So a lot of people like to take melatonin. I don't really recommend that one. Those are just kind of over-the-counter supplements you can buy. But the ones that have worked are the ones that you're not taking supplementation. So sleep coaches that can, kind of coach you and take away that fear of bedtime, or can help you with your sleep regulation and monitoring. But those can get a little costly and pricey, so it's not always best for everyone. But another one is sleep apnea. A lot of people suffer from sleep apnea because of stress and weight gain and things like that. So going to someone who can test you out, and maybe you need the sleeping apparatus, those have proven really, really well for people with sleeping and insomnia and sleep problems.
The cold and flu season is just around the corner once again, Cami. What ancient strategies or remedies do you suggest to maybe help boost our immune systems? I mean, for me, a lot of times I have blueberries just about every day on my cereal, or strawberries. A lot of the berries, I guess, have a lot of antioxidants in them?
Yeah, and antioxidants are great. And let's remember, we should be not only dealing with the cold and flu when it happens, but being preventative. So let's start now. Taking astragalus root is a really great one for boosting the antibodies in your body. And also it helps to reduce inflammation and helping with the respiratory health. So making sure your lungs and your upper respiratory are nice and healthy and strong to kind of prevent those viruses coming and entering the body. Elderberry is a classic, again, high in antioxidants, helping with upper respiratory, echinacea, things that we should be taking now to be preventative for when those things kind of hit. But when we do get those viruses, a lot of us will have sore throat. So taking marshmallow root is really great for soothing those mucous membranes when we're having those really hard coughs and things like that. So,
are there any foods that maybe we should be leery of, especially when it comes to seniors, maybe those who are most vulnerable, or even children they should maybe steer clear of?
Sugar is the biggest one. Sugar and salt, too much, right? Sugar is just wreaks havoc on your cellular health in your body. So staying as healthy and nutritious as possible with lots of great vegetables, that's the key.
And let's wrap it up with talking about specific foods, herbs, or lifestyle practices from traditional medicine that can maybe help individuals ward off common seasonal illnesses, or maybe how about some allergies too?
So bee pollen is a great one for seasonal allergies. And another one that I love are things that you can just find in your kitchen. So garlic and onions, making one of those fire ciders that, has maybe some peppercorns and cayenne pepper. So when you're using those warming spices, that really helps against some of these cold and flus that can enter the body.
And the garlic also keeps the vampires at bay, correct?
For Halloween, perfect timing.
Cami Tanner is the founder behind Herbal Apothecary, located right here in Lethbridge, Alberta. Cami, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Issues like homelessness and human trafficking have never been more evident than they are today. A church in Alberta has taken on the challenge to help with these issues in a big way. Joining me now is Jen Tribble, the executive director at My City Care. She's a pastor and a figure leading the way to a brighter future. Jen, thanks so much for joining me today. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so you are the executive director of a ministry called My City Care. Can you maybe explain to us what this is?
Sure. So My City Care is a local program that came out of Parallel Church back in 2016. And since then, it's been rapidly growing and expanding across our province and into other provinces. We're now in 10 different locations serving many communities, which has been amazing. We focus on different programs around different issues such as food, clothing, housing, social justice, like you mentioned, with human trafficking, health, and anything where there's gaps or different needs in the community that we're just willing to come in and help find solutions and be a part of addressing the problem.
That's incredible. So it's been around 7 years, which that's gone so fast because it feels like it's just been a few years. And you said out of Parallel Church, the one out of Lethbridge, right?
Yes.
Okay, so which 10 communities has it spread to?
Yeah, so we have different communities. So we have Lethbridge, we have Claresholm, Okotoks, Lloydminster, we're in Tabor, we're also in Penticton, BC. We're moving rapidly into Saskatchewan, which is really exciting. We have different church partners here in Lethbridge, so we're partnering with a few different churches here. So we're in all those communities, but out of those communities, we're serving the group population.
Yeah, definitely. So how does it help address food insecurity among local families and vulnerable individuals within all these communities?
Yeah, so every community is a little bit different, and we kind of come in kind of with an open hand and say, how can we help and how can we come alongside the local community there? So in Lethbridge in particular, we help with different things like food lunch programs. We do a You Pick pantry out of our office where families can come in and kind of pick what they need, because everyone's needs are a little bit different, especially culturally. We have a lot of newcomer families here in Lethbridge, specifically, and so they can't eat certain foods. So we tend to kind of make it a little bit more user friendly and let them pick the things that they need or are most relative to them and their dietary needs. We also help out with like mobile food programs, lunches that we give out to the homeless. There's quite a few different ways that we do it. Last year we handed out 80,000 meals, which was incredible.
That is incredible. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, on the one hand, congratulations, but on the other hand, it's so sad that it is a need that has to be filled. Speaking of which, can you maybe share any stories or testimonials that highlight the positive outcome of this outreach?
Yeah, we just actually came through a really crazy season. So we just finished our Step the Bus initiative, and across our locations, we served over 3,500 kids. 1,000 of those being in Lethbridge, Alberta here, and then the rest of them across the province. But it was a really big need. We had a lot of families come in to access things like school supplies and shoes and coats, winter boots, things like that. A lot of families who even messaged us personally after the event and were like, we couldn't have done this without you guys. Thank you so much for your support. There's a lot of families who have messaged us and been like, I don't know what we would have done without you guys. So it's been a really big season for, I think, families getting those extra expenses when it comes to times like back to school and Christmas. We see that.
And we're getting into that season right now, aren't we? That festive season where the budget seems to get even tighter. So I'm sure that the need is going to go up very, very soon. But Jen, your mission in life seems to be dedicated to helping people. So another aspect of My City Care is finding solutions for human trafficking. So that ministry is called Not for Sale, right?
Yes. So we have a ministry that we partner with called Not for Sale. It also has been an organization that's birthed out of our church, and it's been around for even longer than My City Care. But yeah, its mission is to help eradicate human trafficking, which is a huge need, not just in Canada, but around the world.
Yeah, it really is. And it seems to be worse now than ever before. And it's hard to believe that. But what is the biggest misconception about human trafficking today?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions we see is that a lot of people think that it is just overseas and that it doesn't happen in your own backyard, when we see the effects of that even daily in our office here in Lethbridge. And so we see a lot of people that are coming in that are accessing services that also might be in situations that are difficult for them to bring forward or discuss. And so part of our job is to build relationships with them through our office and just make it a safe place where they can connect with people.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying it happens like right here in these smaller communities. Oh, that's incredible. I know that you also, as well as making a difference in the community, you go, outreach as well. So I believe your group offers outreach in other countries, right? So I saw on your website you do missions in Mexico.
Yes, that actually is a part of our Not for Sale ministry as well.
Yeah, interesting. I know that people can kind of sign up to go do missions for that. If you do a mission, what does that look like?
What we typically have done in the past is we would take a team, and so we do training and different types of training with our teams here, and then we will take them down, and it's usually very specialized, and yeah, it's an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about locally? How do you help somebody that comes in and who is a victim of this or has seen something?
For sure. What we'll do is usually connect them to the appropriate services. So we have amazing agencies within Lethbridge, like the Sexual Assault Center. We have different connections through the police department. And so if somebody does come in, we'll get them the appropriate supports that are relative to them. Mm-hmm. We tend to be a bridge builder.
Okay, perfect. Can you maybe share any personal stories that have come out of working to free these children and these women?
I would say when it comes to in Canada and stuff, a lot of the situations are very interwoven. So they're very complex situations. They're not like they're going to come in and express that they're in a situation like that. A lot of the times the people that come through the doors are dealing with multiple things such as poverty and addictions and homelessness. And so they're very vulnerable in those situations. And sometimes because of the nature of it and the manipulation and deception that goes into that, they don't necessarily recognize that could be a situation that they're in. So a lot of the times we really work on that relationship piece and building trust and a safe place where they can connect with different members of our team. And then if they do come forward, then we can help them report it or get them connected through the different agencies and channels that would be the best route for them. But because it's so unique in every situation, that pathway looks different. And so we might connect them right away into a rehab, or we might connect them into a place where they can have safe shelter. anything. So it's very different and unique to the individual and what they're going through and their needs that are unique to them.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine it's very psychological too, because these people are in bondage. And do you find that, I would imagine it's not easy for somebody to come forward. They're probably terrified, for one thing. Does this usually happen with the person coming to you, or is it usually done through somebody else, that somebody is aware that something is going on and you guys go in and intervene? Or do you get law enforcement involved if that's the case?
It would most likely be law enforcement in those types of situations. Like we in our office are more on the bridge building and relationship building side. And then so we would hand them over to, like I said, the appropriate resources that can help and take the next steps, whether they want to press charges or they want to just be in a safe situation. It really does vary. And sometimes like the part that we play is the part where we just connect them to the appropriate places for them, especially in Canada. Right? Because the systems here are so different.
So, Jen, how can the average person help to put an end to something like this, to human trafficking?
Yeah, I think there's lots of very like practical ways that you can help. Like one of the biggest things that we can do is educate the public about it and let people know that this isn't just something that happens overseas, like it happens in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our backyards. So one of the things that you can do is spread awareness of what to look for and the signs of human trafficking. And it's not to cause fear, it's just to bring awareness to it. And the fact that there might be people that are going through this and they don't recognize it as human trafficking. Like I was saying, because of the deception and the manipulation around it, sometimes it's difficult to recognize. One of the other things you can do is donate. You can donate your time. You could donate resources that help go into programs that are fighting human trafficking, that are creating safe spaces in the community for people to bring their story forward. That's really important. And so there's lots of organizations that are dealing with situations like this, but they're just like their part is to create a safe space and to build trust and relationships, right? There's lots of frontline organizations that are working with vulnerable populations who, even if they aren't being trafficked, they're at risk of being trafficked. So the more places that we have that are safe and approachable for people with those kinds of situations, the better. So donating your time, volunteering at local organizations that deal with vulnerable populations is incredible. You can give directly to My City Care Not for Sale online. So you can go onto the websites and make a direct donation to those places. And yeah, there's very practical ways that we can fight it locally. The biggest thing we can do is educate and let families know what to look for, educate our kids, have safety online. That's a big one because like a lot of the times, like a lot of times our kids and victims are approached online. So having good online safety is really important.
That's a huge one. Yes.
As parents, being really aware of that and just having those safeguards in place.
Okay. No, that's interesting that you brought that up. You mentioned looking for the signs. What are these signs that we're supposed to be looking for?
Yeah. So I think some of the things that they usually that are kind of the telltale signs are if people are isolating from their friends and family. That's a big one. So if you're seeing changes in how they approach life, they're isolating. Sometimes they might be carrying multiple phones. That's a big one. Being, I would say, like, being away and not knowing where they are, or maybe they will know where they are, but if you ask them, sometimes their stories don't add up. Any bruising or tattoos sometimes can be an indicator, but like a big one I think is big one to watch for is isolation, multiple cell phones. As a parent, I think you know when something's off with your children, and keeping an eye on those social media platforms and different things and how they're communicating with their friends and family. And isolation is a really big one.
Okay, no, interesting. Thank you for bringing that up. I'll switch things over to you a little bit more personally. So you and your husband, Tim, head up online pastoring for Parallel Church, which currently has campuses here in Lethbridge, as well as Clare's Home, Lloydminster, Taber, and Okotoks, right? So both of these ministries, Not for Sale and My City Care, run out of Parallel, right? So how did you and your husband get involved in this type of ministry?
Yeah, we moved here from Penticton, BC, just over like 10 years ago. And we were a part of a church there, and we ended up going to a conference in Edmonton, and we were looking for a change in our life, and we ended up meeting some pastors actually from the church here. And they invited us to come down one Sunday, and we fell in love with it and the vision of the church. And we decided 6 months later, we packed up and moved, and we were here.
Interesting. Well, Penticton is such a beautiful area. It would have been hard to leave. So obviously you had a big intrinsic motivator there to make you jump over. That's amazing. You mentioned Parallel Church. So what are some of the other missions that Parallel Church is focused on right now?
Yeah, we are really, really focused on love and impacting our community. So my city care is a huge focus of Parallel Church. We also are really focused on building community in smaller groups. So right now we're doing a lot with our house parties and connecting people into smaller groups, because it's difficult sometimes to make friends in a big service on a Sunday. But if you can meet in homes and build relationship and have community, people tend to really thrive in that kind of environment. So we're really big on connecting people into homes and getting them connected and meeting friends. And so that's a big focus right now. Like I said, Not for Sale is another one of our ministries. We have kids ministry and youth ministry, and our youth ministry is a really fun time for anyone who's got teenagers and they're looking for something for them to do. We've got a solution for them.
Amazing. Great little plug for your church there, Jen. It's amazing. Well, thanks for your time today. I really commend you on the work that you're doing in the community.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Jen Tribble is the Executive Director of My City Care and a pastor at Parallel Church. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.